This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
One thing I always struggle with in the NFL is trying to project teams who are losing elite alpha wide receivers, because yes, we do get guys moving into bigger roles, but also the team is probably going to be less efficient too, and opposing defense can devote more coverage to those guys. So because I struggle, I'm going to bring on Annie Nader for today's show and pick her brain on how to handle the situations, because obviously some key situations on tap for week 5 with the Giants and the Dolphins. We're going to dig in with Annie, see what she sees in those situations, outline her favorite props for this week, and talk through an SGP that Annie likes at FanDuel Sportsbook. Welcome on into Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here once again by Annie Nader. Find her on X at Nader33. Check out her work at FanDuel Research, where she is covering WNBA, NFL, NBA, just around the corner, MLB as well. Busy season for you, Annie. Condolences on your Red Sox. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Jim. Yeah, I was going to say Mac Jones masterclass last night, and nothing else happened in the sports world. So
right. You can't keep a Boston fan down for too long. At least you can glom on to Mac Jones. You can blame it on Belichick for the failure. You know, I feel like everything's coming up Annie despite the Red Sox loss.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that I see Tatum play basketball before I see the Red Sox play next.
How was your heart rate when you saw Tatum making the media rounds recently, talking about how, hey, I'm 4 months out, we could make some magic this year?
Look, I think late February is the target date.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens.
We're cooking with gas. We transitioned out of NFL season straight into Tatum season. What could possibly be better than that? As mentioned, a lot to break down with Annie for today, including what to expect from guys like Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, as we lose a guy like Malik Nabers, Jalen Waddle, Darren Waller, etc. as well, given that they've lost the gravitational force of those offenses. Can we find some value in their props, or are they stayaways until we get more information on what those offenses look like? Then we'll go through Annie's read on week 5, top player props, some touchdown bets, and an SGP as well. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast, because NFL week 5 preview with Brandon Gadula is up already here on the feed. We talked college football week 6 with Kent Padgett too, DFS show over on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page. All these shows, of course, on both the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page and the Covering the Spread podcast feed. So go subscribe to both. Leave us a 5-star rating review on Spotify or Apple, and also a thumbs up on YouTube. Turn on notifications there as well. We appreciate those of you tuning in. As always, FanDuel's getting you ready for kickoff with an offer you won't want to miss. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5, and if it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines, whatever your style, FanDuel has you covered. NFL season is finally here. Only question is, are you ready to play? Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online, real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's begin things, Annie, with that wide receiver discussion, because we have no Malik Nabers, no Tyreek Hill, and those guys are, again, big gravitational forces in their respective offenses. So we get these secondary guys moving into bigger roles. But we should expect those teams to be less efficient as well. So how do you balance those two things, looking at props around those players shifting into larger roles?
Yeah, it's tricky because, like you said, when these high usage receivers like Hill and Nabers are out, we need to downgrade those teams' offensive expectations. And even then, it's not totally clear how much we should downgrade those teams. And the secondary players that are due for a bigger role are having to navigate that role without their wide receiver one taking up all the attention from the defense. Like, if Jalen Waddle gets 10 targets in a game with Tyreek Hill, I would assume that Jalen Waddle ended up having a huge game. But Jalen Waddle getting 10 targets in a game where Hill's not around might not look the same. You might not get the same output there. So generally speaking, I think especially in the first week that we're seeing these injuries, or the first week post these injuries, I don't want to force too much or guess too much. But the thing that's interesting about this week, these two teams that we named, the Giants and Dolphins, like they are drawing pretty soft matchups.
Mm-hmm.
And that does make it a lot easier for me to consider betting on players like Devon Achane or Darius Slayton, since they're stepping into bigger roles and getting a great matchup on top of that.
I hope I'm not stepping on toes, but I did bet a Darius Slayton touchdown prop last night for these reasons, where it's like, yes, it is a downgrade to not have Malik Nabers out there, but Darius Slayton has proven he can earn targets in the past. He gets downfield targets. He's playing in the dome. So I agree with you where, like, yes, we need to be very cautious of these situations, but sometimes we can still find some value. And, you know, for me, it was Darius Slayton. We'll talk about your touchdown bets later on today. But there are a lot of other fluid situations in play for week number 5 as well. Got some backfields that are in flux, some other receiver situations that could be kind of fluky. And we can find some value in the situations. When we're looking at those situations, Andy, things that could be changing, any spots you're looking at, try to find some value. Props may not be up yet for those, but once they are up, where do you think you want to look to see if we can find some value in those up in the air situations?
Yeah, like you said, a lot of interesting stuff with running backs this week. Woody Marks is coming off a breakout game. His rushing and receiving prop is set at 75.5 against the Ravens. So the market definitely adjusted there. I don't need to take that either side. Denver's backfield looked a lot different in week 4. It was pretty much an even split between Dobbins and RJ Harvey. And we've seen it impact their prop lines. Dobbins' rushing prop is set at 51.5. Harvey's is at 30.5. So not as big of a gap there as we would have gotten earlier in the year. That's a situation where I'm not going to bet on that now, but as we get closer to Sunday, I might want to check in on it because Harvey had a great role on Monday. He was efficient in that role, but when it comes to a rookie running back, it's one thing to get a bunch of touches at home in a blowout script and another thing to get the call on the road against the Eagles. So if Dobbins' props end up coming down a little bit to where I think he's undervalued and it was maybe an overreaction to last week's snap shares, then that could be something I'm interested in. Trey Benson's on the IR, obviously. Michael Carter's minus 105 to score. So that's a situation where I just go like, okay, yeah, like they adjusted for Michael Carter being the starter. I don't necessarily know that I want to bet on him in that starting role since they've already adjusted for that. And then Bucky Irving also is another name that might be out. So Rachaad White's yardage lines aren't up yet, but that's one that I'm definitely going to be potentially looking at as we get closer to Sunday.
Yeah, it's sounding like Bucky Irving trending towards being out there, and that's a tough one because I do think that Rachaad White will have a really good role, but it's such a difficult defense. Like Trey Benson just faced the same Seahawks defense last week, and I loved Trey Benson last week, had a touchdown bet on him, and even before the injury, he wasn't doing a ton, honestly. So Rachaad White is a player I think is good, but is moving into a tough matchup. So it's kind of a bummer the timing for him. Like if we got Rachaad White in against the Panthers, hypothetically, I'd be all aboard that. And maybe the Seahawks matchup drags down those lines. I do think the role will be good, but like, it's just like such a bummer situation to get Rachaad White in that specific matchup for this week.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what his yardage line is set at. I think his touchdown plops at like plus 140 right now, which seems kind of efficient there. So
you mentioned the Michael Carter one. I was also bummed in that last night. I have him plus 170 to score, which I thought would be pretty ambitious. And, minus 105 is not quite plus 170. So, Oh well, we move on to other, hopefully greener pastures. Let's dig into some actual props, Annie. When you look at the board for right now, let's begin things with some yardage props. Which of those stand out to you for week number 5?
Yeah, you talked about him a bit. I like Darius Slayton over 42.5 receiving yards.
I love it. The synergy is, we are in lockstep already today.
Yeah, I mean, Slayton's role really stands out. It stands to increase with Nabers out. Last year, Nabers missed 2 games. Slayton was targeted 11 times in each of those games, went for 122 yards in the first, followed it up with 57 yards in the next. Now, I don't think it's like great process to just look at the box scores from those 2 games and project Slayton for those numbers this weekend. That was like about 3 quarterbacks ago for the Giants, and Slayton isn't going to average 11 targets per game for the rest of the season just because Neighbors is out. But that sample did show us that you kind of touched on earlier, that not only can Slayton earn targets, but he can make good use of them, and he's historically done really well in an expanded role. And he was already running 85% of the routes heading into week 4, which was second on the team behind Neighbors. But then ultimately, I think the thing that put me over Slayton at 42.5 yards is this matchup against the Saints. Saints do not have a good defense. They've given up the 4th most yards per route run to wide receivers. And there's the added benefit of this game being played in a dome. And if you look at Jackson Dart, like, he only threw 20 passes last week, wasn't super efficient, but under those circumstances, it made sense. The Giants were playing a really good Chargers defense. It was Dart's first start, and they lost Neighbors shortly into that game. And it's not easy to lose someone of his caliber mid-game like that and continue on with the game plan. But this is a much softer spot for Dart and this Giants offense as a whole. So I honestly don't think we need Dart to be like super capable or efficient in the passing game in order for Slayton to clear this number, which is 42.5.
Yeah, 42.5 over is -114 for Darius Slayton. You touched on a lot of key points there. And I think that those are part of the reason why I was willing to buy into Darius Slayton too, is he's a cockroach. And I mean that in the most complimentary way possible. They've tried to kill Darius Slayton 16 times. Like, they've tried to cut him, they've tried to trade him, but he keeps earning snaps and he keeps earning targets when he's given the chance. Now, I always do worry about these players who don't see a snap increase, because like yards per route run is not going to complement Darius Slayton. Target per route rate won't complement him. But again, you're taking out a player who is like going to earn a 35% target share. And we've seen it happen for Darius Slayton before. When you take away that kind of player, as you said, he can earn targets. He can earn downfield targets. So 42.5 is one where he doesn't even need massive volume to get there. So I think that he just kind of checks every key box, and he tosses in the matchup, like you said. It's a situation where, yes, as we discussed in the beginning, we want to be cautious with these players, these new roles. But I think that Slayton specifically is in the best possible setup where he checks all those boxes we want for a receiver in this kind of situation.
Yeah, 100%. And I will be using that cockroach nickname. That's great.
I think that also you went with the baseline market here. I think he's in play for all markets, but I agree with you going with the baseline number just because the passing volume is a concern with Dart, because it seems like they want to be pretty conservative there. So I love alts. I probably will take some Darius Slayton alts, but I think that the baseline bet is the best one for him. That's over 42.5 at -114. Any other yardage or usage props you're looking at for week number 5, Annie?
Yeah, I like Javonte Williams over 68.5 rushing yards. Williams has had a really solid start to the season. Entering week 5, he ranks 6th in rushing yards and 6th in yards after contact, and he's netting 0.03 expected points added per carry. He's rushed for 76 plus yards in 3 straight games and is averaging 78 rushing yards per game. And in my eyes, there are a few key things that are working in his favor on Sunday. Miles Sanders hasn't practiced this week with a knee and ankle injury. Seems like there's a decent chance that Sanders ends up sitting in this one. That could mean we get Jaden Blue. I don't know that we will. And even if we do, like, they haven't seemed to want to use him, so I don't imagine he'll take on that heavy of snap rate. And Williams is already playing 73% of the snaps, so feels like with Sanders potentially.
Did lose Annie there, but yeah, talking about Javonte Williams and his role here with the Dallas Cowboys, he's had a really good role. Miles Sanders got hurt mid-game last week, and he stayed in the game. Like, they never actually ruled him out, but he was on the sideline and stuff like that, which could imply that maybe he does wind up coming back for this game, but no practice so far, Wednesday or Thursday. Offensive line is pretty banged up for the Cowboys in this spot, which could be a bit of a concern, but I do think that Javonte Williams, the role, is very, very good. And when you give me a good role, a 68.5 yard prop, that's going to be pretty tough to turn down. And honestly, I'm a bit surprised they even have Javonte Williams markets posted, frankly, given that the Miles Sanders injury is a significant one. They have shown they don't trust Jaden Blue as of yet, and he has not been active for a game yet. So why would they go in and give Jaden Blue a massive snap share on this team in the first game with no Miles Sanders? So I definitely agree with the rationale here behind Javonte Williams. Like I said, I'm a bit surprised that they even have this prop posted, but we'll take it for sure. So Annie, any final thoughts for you on the Javonte Williams prop?
Yeah, I mean, I think potentially first time the Cowboys will be in a positive game script this season. So,
oh, true. I didn't think about that.
yeah.
That definitely does help for sure. So Annie is on Javonte Williams over 68.5 rushing yards. That is sitting at -114 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Let's shift our focus now towards the touchdown prop market, Annie. Always a fun one for sure. When you look at those, where is seeing value across week 5 at FanDuel Sportsbook?
Yeah, I like Nico Collins anytime touchdown at +125. He's usually not someone that I ever bet on when he's on the road. He has a really awesome track record playing at home and indoors. And for the most part, whenever the Texans move outdoors, I'm not really interested in Nico's props. The difference for me this week is that Nico's awesome market shares are meeting up with the Ravens defense that appears to have like nobody left. On top of Lamar Jackson being out, we have Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey, Roquan Smith, all who have not practiced this week. And there are like way more defensive injuries of guys who have either not practiced or are in limited capacity. So there's a chance that a Baltimore defense that is already not playing great is massively shorthanded on Sunday. They've allowed 6 receiving touchdowns to wide receivers through 4 games. That's the second most in the NFL. And they're letting up a 75% red zone scoring percentage. And meanwhile, Collins is up to a 27% target share, 42% air yard share, and 44% red zone target share. So I think when you put this like really easy matchup in front of him, he has a strong path to reach the end zone. I think plus 125 is a pretty good shake, even on the road, just because this defense does not look like it's going to do well this weekend.
I'm on board with you where I tend to favor Nico at home, but when they were facing the Jags in week number 3, his usage was awesome. And frankly, like down to down, the Texans moved the football pretty well. I know as like a football watching public, we're down on this Texans offense. I think when you dig under the hood a bit, their early down numbers are better than you might expect. And when you put that in a good matchup against Baltimore, wind is not a massive concern here. I don't know. I kind of into the Texans overall. I did bet the spread after Lamar was ruled out. Did lay the 1.5 with the Texans there. Obviously, that's already accounting for the Lamar injury, but I've got the Texans favored by 3.7 in this game after Lamar Jackson is ruled out because it's a pretty big downgrade to Cooper Rush, despite the fact he is a competent backup quarterback. And then you add in all those defensive injuries. I think it's just a pretty good setup. So I'm on board with you, like buying into the Texans offense in general. But then when you're buying the Texans, it's typically got to be Nico Collins. I think that the stars do align, even though, like you said, we prefer Nico at home generally. I think in this specific spot, we can make an exception just because Texans offense a tad underrated right now, and this Ravens defense is just decimated.
Yeah, definitely. And Christian Kirk has kind of intriguing touchdown odds too. I'm not going to go there, but this may be worth a shout.
I bet Christian Kirk last week and it didn't go well. So I've decided to stay off. Maybe that's just like recency bias and I should be a little bit less bullheaded about that. Let me see where I have Kirk. I have him at 290 to score this week. And he is okay. So a bit of value there on Christian Kirk. I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. We're going to scroll past that. Pretend it didn't happen. We'll focus just on Nico at plus 125 to score for the Texans and the Ravens. All right, Annie, let's open the board now and talk about a same game parlay you like for this week. When you look at all the games remaining across week number 5, which game you go into and what kind of SGP you trying to cook up within that game?
I'm going to the Sunday night game.
Ooh, okay. I am very excited about that game. I've got the over in that game, so I'm hoping we get a touchdown score in the mix here because I need points, Annie.
Yeah, the over is the first leg I like.
Okay, there we go. Synergy again. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the highest total for week 5, which makes sense because the Bills are involved. And if you look at where the Bills are at right now, the offense is really healthy, definitely relative to the rest of the league. And the Bills haven't had to travel outside of New York this year. Under those circumstances, with this matchup, with just what Josh Allen is and what this offense is, it'd be really surprising to me if they didn't score 30 plus points. And we know that they're capable of way more than that. So I like when a team like the Bills are involved when you're betting it over because they're capable of doing a ton of that heavy lifting here. So if the Patriots totally put up a dud, this game still has a path to hit on the over. But I also think the Patriots can help us out here. I mean, Drake May, you don't necessarily like love his skill players, but you kind of love what you've seen from Drake May. They've kind of been just like a gritty offense and have been able to put points on the board. Stephon Diggs finally stepped up a bit last week. So AFC East matchup, it's a really big game for both teams, with the other two teams in the AFC East kind of dead, seems like. So I think it should be a really fun game. And on top of that, it helps that, like, for as good as the Bills are, their defense isn't too intimidating.
No.
So they're just, like, for me, a great team to target overs. And I think it's a good way to build a SGP from here.
I was annoyed when this total went down to 49.5 because I have over 50.5 and I hate when stuff moves against me. So I'm glad that you're on my side, Annie. That makes me feel better. So thank you for the confidence boost. Taking the 49.5 is the first leg there. What else do you want to add to this SGP?
I think you can guess where I'm going with leg 2.
I hope it's a Josh Allen touchdown. Yeah. Okay, good. I love it.
I think it's at minus 120, which is, minus 120 for Josh Allen, which last few weeks, I think it was like around minus 180. We got like plus 100 week 1. It's been a lot shorter since, but minus 120 we're kind of back to fair shake territory here. As we know, like, he's just capable of scoring a 30-yard run, or he's capable of getting a tush push. Like, he just has lots of paths to scoring at home in a game where the Bills are due to score a lot of points. Josh Allen at minus 120 to score is a good value as a standalone, I think, maybe, especially since he's someone who just has so many opportunities to score. But I also just love putting his touchdown prop in an SGP because it correlates well with the over and is something that, if it is, can only be found at really short odds. We can find exposure in that via an SGP instead.
Yeah, and I think that you're buying low after Allen broke his freaking nose. Like, there's a reason they were not using the tush push recently, and also they were playing the Saints. And the game before that is also not a super competitive game. Like, if you're like $50 million, $60 million quarterback has a broken nose and you're 14.5 point favorites, you're not using the tush push. But when you're facing the only obvious threat you have in your division on a Sunday Night Football game, they're going to pull out all the stops. So I think it's a good spot to buy low, especially when they're implied to score a bunch of points here. So I think that the thought process here is very, very sound, just because, again, with the broken nose, they weren't going to do it if they didn't have to. He did still score one of those games. But like, I think that minus 120 is a great number. Okay, so we got the over and the Josh Allen touchdown prop. What else do you like here?
I like Keon Coleman over. I believe it's set at 39.5 right now. I'm a big fan of Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
So he leads the team with an 18% target share, 30% air yard share, and 72% route participation rate. Patriots have allowed 1.68 yards per route run to wide receivers. They're 26th in adjusted pass defense. Coleman picked up 112 yards in week 1 on that Sunday night game, got 45 yards last week. His output was down in week 2 and 3, but Josh Allen didn't have to pass the ball that much in those games anyway. They were really just riding James Cook in that week 2 game and just haven't had to do a whole lot in the passing game. I think this could be different because I think we can kind of look for the Patriots to put up a fight. And as we mentioned, like, this is a huge game for both teams. And Keon Coleman kind of being the leader of this receiving room, 39.5 seems like pretty low of a number for him, especially since, like, it seems he gets, like, his targets in bunches. So he can, like, get this in, like, one quarter and, like, sort of be an afterthought in the other quarters, but he can pick this up in bunches fairly quickly.
I think the key thing you mentioned there is, like, the game script, where they haven't had to throw very much recently, and they're going to have to here. Like, the Patriots offense has been good. The Bills defense has not. And it's also 2-mile-per-hour winds. That sets up well for a guy who gets downfield targets like Keon Coleman. So he's not going to need a ton of volume to get over this number. And I always find that very intriguing. So Annie's 3-leg same game parlay is the over 49.5, Josh Allen to score, Keon Coleman over 39.5 receiving yards, plus 403. I like all those legs individually. I like them all together. I think this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to put Patriots money line in here because I don't have faith in them, but I'm very excited for this game. I think it might end up being the best game of week 5. So hopefully the Patriots can put up a bit of a fight to make it interesting, but yeah.
Yeah. While we're here, I need to check to see what the all over numbers are in this game because I told Brandon on Thursday I was going to do that, and I haven't actually bet the alt over yet. I don't like to double dip too much. I'd rather go with just the baseline or an all over. But I think in this specific situation, especially with numbers moving a little bit against me, maybe that means I'm a dummy for betting against the market. But let's see here. I want to see if we can get like 59.5. That is at plus 310. So maybe we'll consider that too. Have a little fun on Sunday night. Alrighty, that is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. Big thank you once again to Annie Nader for joining me, breaking down her thoughts on NFL Week number 5. Annie, hopefully the Pats can lift up your spirits from the Red Sox last night. Enjoy that. Enjoy WNBA Finals now getting underway as well. Really good sports weekend for you, so enjoy all of it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Jim.
Find Annie on X at Nader33. Find her work at FanDuel Research. I am on X and Blue Sky at JimSannes and on Threads at Jim.Sannes, and find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you, the NFL Week 5 and College Football Week 6 bets. We'll talk to you once again Monday to break down the Chiefs and the Jags. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.